Hey everybody, this is Ross with 714 Ministries International. Good to be with you again today. We are at day 21, Proverbs 21. So let me give you some of these topics that take place in this, and let me share you something after I give you the topics out of verse 3, which is a really interesting verse that I think will be a blessing and help to you. So here's some of the topics from Proverbs 21. We all answer to someone. Right? Everybody answers to someone. Your motives matter. Do right. Haste makes waste. And these are continuing themes. Some of these you've heard in other Proverbs, and it's good because you're reinforcing now. You're hearing something again in a different frame, in a different setting, and it reinforces what you've already thought and what you've already been going through mentally to reinforce these virtues in your life. He who lies dies. To be is to do, and to do is to be. Peace over pleasure. I like that. That's repeated twice in this same proverb. Peace over pleasure. Wicked people make bad neighbors. Like we didn't know that. Learn from your mistakes. Learn from your mistakes. God sees, God knows, and God does. I like to say this way with that particular thought. Let me give you just a little bit more. God's silence is not God's absence, because God sees, God knows, and God will do what needs to be done. Pause for the poor. There's joy for the just and wrath for the wicked. Quit wandering and quit squandering. Saving versus spending. We all pay the piper. Wise investments. Good character, great life. Virtue is a premium. A guarded tongue makes for a safe soul. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. You can't have your cake and eat it too. God blesses the blesser. Don't be bullheaded, ramming into everything, my way or the highway. Don't be that person. The omniscience and omnipotence of God, and finally, at the end of chapter 21, day 21, the battle belongs to the Lord. By the way, if you have never listened to it, when you're done watching this, search for Phil Wickham, The Battle Belongs to the Lord. Great song. That song's been one of my favorites now for about the last 3-4 months. All right, Proverbs 21, verse 3. To do righteousness and justice is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. There's this phrase that's been thrown around for quite a while. It's better to ask forgiveness than permission. Guess what? Wrong. It's better to do right and err on the side of caution than to do something you have to have forgiveness for later. So this whole thought of it's better to ask forgiveness than permission, throw it out the window. Err on the side of caution. If you doubt, as my mom would say, if you doubt, just don't. Just don't. So in 1 Samuel chapter 15, if you read 1 Samuel 15, you're going to find the story of King Saul, newly anointed king of Israel, and God gave him one simple command at the beginning of his reign. And he gave the command through his servant Samuel, by who the book 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel are named after. And they document the ministry and life of Samuel and also the ministry and life of the first 3 kingdoms in Israel, Saul, David, and Solomon. So in 1 Samuel 15, read the entire chapter when you have a chance. But in this narrative, God speaks through Samuel to tell Saul that he wants Saul to wipe out the Amalekites. Now, I know some of you people that are very good at virtue signaling, if you watch this and you're woke or you're whatever, you're like, oh no, genocide. That's not right. God told Saul to wipe out the Amalekites the same way God told the people of Israel under Joshua to wipe out Canaanites and different kingdoms. You and I cannot tell God what is right and wrong. God does not do wrong. There's no wrong in him. He's never made a mistake. And life is his to give or to take. There's deeper understanding in this. That's just a peripheral. That's just the first layer of why this is okay for Saul to do. But Saul doesn't do it. As a matter of fact, Saul spares the king, and they save the best of the cattle, the best of the sheep, and the best of some other things. And they make excuses for their disobedience, which flies in the face of this very proverb. Says it's better to do right and listen to God and be obedient to him than to do what you want, but then give God some sacrifice later. And I apologize because I turned. To do righteousness and justice is more acceptable to the Lord than a sacrifice. So, God then speaks to Samuel. Says, Samuel, I regret making him king. He's done. His time is going to be very short, and it's not going to be very good. He's not going to have a whole lot of success, and his time's done. I'm done with Saul. He came in humble, but now he's full of himself. He's making decisions on his own. He's not listening to me. I'm God. He's not, but he thinks he is. And so Samuel then has an all-night prayer meeting for Saul, and it just grieves him what's taken place. And then God sends him to Saul. So Samuel's been in this all-night prayer meeting, weeping before God for God to have mercy and to change God's mind. By the way, we can change God's mind. We can't change God's character, but we can change God's mind. God invites us to change his mind. God invites us to the Genesis 19, either Genesis 18 or 19, when Abraham is bargaining for the soul of the city of Sodom, right? He starts out, will you save the city for 50, for 40, for 30, for 12, for 10? This whole process of wrestling with God is very welcome. Wrestling with God has been going on since Abraham. In fact, the name Israel means one who wrestles with God, just in case you didn't know. But we come down to this point here, where Samuel then has to go confront Saul and say, God's done. And call him out. Call him out. Great men of God call out wicked leaders. Great men of God stand in the gap. Great people of God do right when it's not easy, but they do right because it's right to do. Are you going to be that kind of person? Am I going to be that kind of person? So in confronting Saul, Samuel says in 1 Samuel 15:22, has the Lord a great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices, as in obeying the voice of the Lord? In other words, what does God value more? All these sacrifices you're making, all this show, or does he want your obedience? Well, as we know, he wants our obedience. Obedience is better than sacrifice, because look what he says next. Has the Lord a great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices, as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than. So our sacrifice is good. He's not saying to not sacrifice. He's not saying they're not good. He's not saying they're not accepted. But when it comes at the cost of your obedience to God, then your sacrifice has less value than if you'd obeyed God. And that's how he sums up, and that's how we're going to finish. Samuel looks at Saul and says, behold, to obey is better than sacrifice. To obey is better than sacrifice. And to heed, to listen and obey, than the fat of the rams. So I encourage you, be obedient. Throw out this whole philosophy of it's better to ask forgiveness than permission. That's not biblically sound. It's better to obey and err on the side of obedience and caution than it is to try to just do your own thing and then throw some rams and on the altar and say, well, God, here, I want to make it right now. God wants you to obey. Then you have less to have to make right. Have a great day.